Lesson 1. Beginnings of the Hebrew people. You are there. It is not long after 2000 BC. You live in a pastoral family south of Mesopotamia. Your family's herd of sheep has thinned the grass in this area. It's time to move on, your father has said. As your family and its herd move to the north, you pass another family of herders traveling to the south. Your father asked the family's leader, Abram, about available grasses farther north. Abram reassures your father, but also tells him that he is taking his family south to the land of Canaan. Abraham. The ancient Hebrews are the early ancestors of the Jewish people. Long ago, the ancient Hebrews founded new ideas in religion, which became the origins of Judaism, the religion of the Jewish people. Judaism was the first religion based on monotheism, the concept of one God, who set down moral laws for humanity. These laws provide people with rules for living good lives. The ancient Hebrews are described in the Torah, the oldest religious writings of the Jewish people. The Torah is part of the Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh. The oldest testament of the Christian Bible contains the same text as the Hebrew Bible. Many people use the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament, as a source of information about the ancient Hebrews. Scholars use other ancient writings and archaeological findings to add to our knowledge. The account of the Hebrews begins with Abraham. Some historians think Abraham, known as Abram in his early life, was born in Mesopotamia in about 2000 BC. Mesopotamians believed in many gods, but Abram believed in one God. According to the Hebrew Bible, God spoke to Abram, telling him to leave Mesopotamia and settle with his family in Canaan. After traveling across the desert, Abram and his family reached Canaan. There, the Bible says, Abram heard God say, "I will assign this land to your offspring." The Bible says that God made a covenant with Abram. In this special agreement, God promised that Canaan would always belong to Abram and his descendants. For his part of the covenant, Abram agreed to worship God alone. Later, all Hebrews came to hold this belief. The Bible tells that God told Abram to change his name to Abraham, which means father of many in Hebrew. Through one of his sons, Isaac, Abraham became known as the father of the Jewish people. The Israelites. Abraham's son Isaac had a son named Jacob. Jacob, who became known as Israel, had 12 sons. The Hebrew Bible states that Jacob loved his son Joseph more than his other sons. The other sons became jealous when Jacob gave Joseph a beautiful multicolored robe. Joseph had a dream that one day his brothers would bow down to him. In anger, the brothers sold Joseph to traders on their way to Egypt. They let their father think that a wild animal had killed Joseph. Joseph lived for many years in Egypt. Although the Egyptians worshipped many gods, Joseph continued to follow Abraham's religion, worshiping God only. Because Joseph was a gifted thinker, the Pharaoh made him a trusted advisor. In time, Joseph's authority grew to be second only to that of the Pharaoh. At about this time, famine struck Canaan. Joseph's brothers could not find food there. They traveled to Egypt to buy food, not knowing that Joseph was there. The brothers soon reunited. Later, Jacob's entire family moved to Egypt. Each of Jacob's sons headed a separate tribe, or group, of descendants of Israel. The Israelites continued to live in Egypt for many years. In time, life in Egypt changed for the Israelites. the Pharaoh of later times feared that the Israelites might gain power in Egypt. As a result, the Pharaoh enslaved the Israelites. Moses and the Exodus. The Bible explains that the Israelites were slaves at the time Moses was born. Even so, the Pharaoh worried that the Israelites might overthrow the Egyptians. To prevent this, the Pharaoh ordered that every Israelite baby boy be drowned in the Nile River. One such baby was Moses. Moses' mother set him afloat in a basket on the Nile, hoping that someone would save him. The Pharaoh's daughter rescued Moses and raised him as an Egyptian. However, early on, Moses learned that he was an Israelite. The Bible tells that God told Moses to demand freedom from the Israelites. Moses did as God said, but the Pharaoh refused. To change the Pharaoh's mind, God sent 10 plagues or disasters to Egypt. The first 9 plagues included the turning of the Nile waters into blood, swarms of insects, and hail. Even so, the Pharaoh would not free the Israelites. The 10th plague persuaded the Pharaoh to set the Israelites free. In one night, the Bible says, God killed the firstborn son of every Egyptian, including the Pharaoh's. The Israelites' mass departure from Egypt to escape slavery is known as the Exodus. Experts believe this event may have taken place in 1225 BC. This event is described in the second book of the Bible, which is called Exodus. After departing Egypt, the Israelites traveled on the Sinai Peninsula along the Red Sea. They wandered for 40 years, facing shortages of water and food. The Bible says that God spoke to the Israelites at Mount Sinai along their route. There, God renewed his covenant with the Israelites. God also presented Moses with 2 stone tablets carved with a set of laws called the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments differed from earlier laws, which described crimes and punishments for those crimes. The 10 Commandments gave rules for responsible behavior and for worshiping God properly. They became an important part of Judaism. Summary: Abraham and Moses are important to the history of the ancient Hebrews and to the origins of Judaism. Abraham founded Judaism, the first monotheistic religion. Moses led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt and received the 10 Commandments from God.